Across the burning moons of Orion, humanity raised its final banner against the Celestial Armies. The Orion Cluster had always glimmered like an ancient crown above the dark throat of space, its 7 moons reflecting the dying light of a red giant that humanity once called beautiful. But beauty meant nothing in the final days. When the Celestial Armies arrived, those same moons became pyres, burning orbs of ash and flame where entire generations vanished in seconds. For 3 long months, humanity had watched its worlds crumble under the onslaught of beings too vast, too elegant, and too merciless to be understood. They were not conquerors in the human sense. They had no hunger, no hatred, no politics. They called themselves correctors of imbalance. They did not invade for territory. They appeared like a divine equation unfolding, rewriting matter and energy, as if resetting the universe to its intended order. No plea, no surrender, no signal of peace could reach them. They simply erased. And against that absolute, humanity stood like a candle before a storm. Commander Rhea Calder of the Earth Navy had long since stopped believing in victory. Victory was a human word, small, sentimental, irrelevant before gods of light. But defiance was human nature distilled to its essence. She stood at the viewport of the Resolute, the last human battleship still functional in the Orion system, its hull blackened and cratered from plasma fire, its reactor screaming with exhaustion. Around her, the remnants of her crew moved like ghosts in flickering light. Lieutenant Kai Avers, her comms officer, a boy who still looked at stars like they meant something, was scanning the void for movement. 3 ships left, ma'am, he said quietly. Us, Nomad, and St. Helix, everyone else. His voice trailed off. Calder nodded once, her jaw tightening. Everyone else fought as long as they could, she said. And now we finish it. She turned toward the holographic map hovering above the command dais. It showed Orion's 6th moon, fractured, glowing with magma veins, and beyond it the mass of the celestial formations, arrayed like an army of angels carved from radiation. Each one was a construct of pure energy, moving with purpose beyond comprehension. Some appeared as spheres of shifting crystal light, others as vast geometric spirals that distorted the gravity around them. They moved without sound, but their presence vibrated through every ship system like a divine hum. Calder could feel it in her bones, the same resonance that had driven weaker minds to madness in earlier battles. She had seen men kneel before these beings, whispering prayers to what they called the true gods. But Calder had burned those temples herself. Lieutenant, she said, prepare for banner protocol. Kai froze. You can't mean that, he said, his eyes wide, the reflection of the glowing console turning his face pale. That's suicide, Commander. The banner was never meant to be activated. It'll blow our cores clean through the system. Calder's voice was calm, almost tender. Then it'll be a bright ending. She walked closer, placing a hand on the side console, feeling the vibration of the dying engines beneath her palm. History doesn't remember the ones who survived, Lieutenant. It remembers the ones who burned bright enough to be seen again. She turned back toward the viewport, watching the nearest moon's surface crack like eggshells under celestial bombardment. The Celestials were methodical, first cleansing the moons, then moving to the stations, then to the ships. They called it realignment. Humanity called it extinction. But Rhea Calder wasn't ready to let them write the ending. She reached down into her jacket and pulled out something wrapped in carbon cloth, a relic from Earth. As she unwrapped it, a worn piece of faded blue and white fabric unfurled, edges frayed, colors dulled by centuries. It was the flag of the first Earth fleet, the first banner ever raised by humans who dared to leave their homeworld. It had survived nuclear wars, black holes, and centuries of peace. Now it had returned to where it belonged, on the front line of humanity's last stand. She had it stitched into the ship's hull plating before the battle, a silent promise that even in death humanity would leave a mark. That's our banner, she said quietly, eyes glinting with the reflection of the burning moons. And it deserves to fly one more time, the comms crackled. A deep, resonant voice echoed through every speaker, its tone neither male nor female, too perfect, too vast to be mortal. Children of entropy, it said. You persist in corruption. The pattern must be cleansed. Kai flinched. It's them again, Calder smiled bitterly. They love speeches, don't they? She stepped forward. Celestial entity, she said clearly. You've burned our worlds, erased our colonies, slaughtered billions. You call it cleansing. We call it cowardice. The voice hummed, emotionless. You resist inevitability. You cannot defy equilibrium. Calder's lips tightened into a faint smirk. Watch me. The channel went dead, leaving only the hum of the reactor and the soft vibration of distant explosions. Begin the sequence, Calder ordered. Link all surviving reactors. The Nomad and St. Helix will form nodes 1 and 2. We'll be the anchor. Kai hesitated. Ma'am, once the banner activates, there's no turning back. It'll use every bit of power we have, or every life on these ships. Then make sure it's worth it, Calder interrupted. Her tone wasn't cruel. It was resolute, almost reverent. If humanity's going to die, let the gods remember why they feared us. Outside, the 3 remaining ships began to align in orbit around the burning moon. Electromagnetic tendrils arced between them, connecting reactors like veins of lightning. Inside the Resolute, alarms blared as containment fields strained. The hull groaned, the decks trembled. Calder gripped the railing, feeling the ship vibrate beneath her, alive, furious, unyielding. Through the viewport, she could see the first celestial formations turning toward them, their bodies pulsing with impossible radiance. The void began to warp, the light twisting into a shape that wasn't meant for human eyes. Kai's voice shook. They're charging, Commander. 50 seconds to contact. Calder nodded slowly. Then 50 seconds to make history. She took one last look at the faded flag lying folded on her console. Signal the fleet, she said. Transmit my words. She drew a deep breath, her voice steady and calm as the reactor began to scream. To all ships still listening, this is Commander Rhea Calder of the Resolute. We are the last of the Earth Navy. We stand on the edge of Orion, surrounded and outnumbered. But remember this, we are not fighting for survival anymore. We are fighting for remembrance. If you can hear my voice, raise your banners. Let the universe know humanity did not vanish quietly into the dark. The message spread across what remained of the fleet, through dying comms, through static, through silence, until every survivor whispered it back. We are not finished. Outside, the Celestials drew closer, their glow filling the void like the dawn of a false heaven. Calder whispered under her breath, "Come and see us burn." And as the light swallowed the Resolute's shadow, humanity's final banner began to rise. The void trembled. The stars themselves seemed to retreat as if in reverence to what humanity was about to attempt. The Resolute's hull shuddered beneath the strain of power it was never meant to contain. Plasma conduits screamed. Energy arcs ran wild across the decks and the air filled with the metallic tang of ozone and fear. Commander Rhea Calder stood at the command dais unmoving, her gloved hands gripping the railing as every display flashed crimson warnings. Banner protocol initiated. Containment failure imminent. The ship was dying, not from damage but from purpose. Around her, crew members fought against the inevitable, rerouting circuits, venting plasma, cooling coils that no longer listened. Yet none of them stopped. Humanity had built machines that could sing, weapons that could shatter moons, and networks that spanned galaxies. But this was different. This was defiance condensed into light, and across the burning moons of Orion, that light was about to make the gods blink. Lieutenant Kai Aver's voice cracked through the static. Nodes 2 and 3 are in position, Commander. Nomad and St. Helix report 95% sync. Sparks showered from a console beside him, but he didn't flinch. Calder turned her gaze toward the viewport, where the other 2 ships floated like dying embers against the white glare of the celestial fleet. Open the banner channel, she ordered. Kai hesitated. It's not stable, ma'am. The energy flux. Do it, she said quietly, and there was no arguing with that tone. He nodded, hands trembling slightly as he linked the reactors. Outside, something magnificent and terrible began to form. 3 ships, humanity's last, became nodes in a triangle of raw energy, connected by threads of plasma that stretched across thousands of kilometers. Between them, space rippled. It wasn't just light, it was something deeper, older, the kind of energy that once sparked the first suns. It pulsed like a heartbeat, synchronized with the ship's reactors, and for a brief instant, Calder thought she heard it whisper, not words but memory, the echo of 1,000,000 human souls that had lived, loved, and died for this moment. The banner was more than a weapon. It was a song. Kai looked up at her, his voice shaking. Commander, readings are off the scale. We're at 140% power. If we go higher, the reactors, then they go higher, she said. Her tone was steady, but her heart raced. She could feel the pull, the gravity of what she was doing. This wasn't a fight for victory. This was the moment humanity told the universe we existed. The celestial armies began to shift in the distance, forming geometric alignments that bent light and time around them. Their voices echoed across every frequency, a choir of perfect tones that carried no emotion, only inevitability. Cease resistance. Equilibrium demands silence. Calder smiled faintly. Silence was never our way. The first wave hit before she finished speaking. A spear of pure photonic energy lanced through the darkness, piercing the Nomad's outer hull and splitting it apart in a blossom of silver flame. The shockwave rolled through the banner field, causing the Resolute's decks to quake violently. Crew were thrown to the floor. Alarms howled, lights died. Nomad's reactor destabilizing, Kai shouted. If it collapses, the banner will... Hold it together, Calder barked. We don't stop now. She slammed her hand down on the console, manually diverting her own ship's power to compensate. The deck beneath her feet grew hot. The lights flickered white-blue as the Resolute's reactor screamed like a living thing. Through the viewport, Calder saw something extraordinary. The Celestials were slowing. Their perfect formations began to flicker, their radiant symmetry breaking. For the first time since the war began, they hesitated. The banner's light was touching them, not as energy, but as presence. Humanity's last act was rewriting the rules of divinity. The energy field pulsed brighter, growing, expanding outward. It washed over the battlefield like dawn breaking through the void. Wherever it touched, celestial constructs warped and bent, their once perfect geometry fracturing. Some vanished entirely, collapsing into motes of light that faded into nothing. Kai stared at the readings in disbelief. They're retreating. Commander, they're actually retreating. Calder's jaw clenched. Not yet. They'll be back. They're analyzing us. She turned toward the reactor interface. Increase power to 160. Stabilize frequency to match the pulse of Orion's sixth moon. Kai's eyes widened. That'll overload the core in minutes. Then make them the brightest minutes humanity ever lived, she said. The banner field intensified again, but the cost was visible. The Resolute's hull began to crack, seams of molten metal running like veins across its surface. The magnetic shielding flickered. Below decks, containment crews screamed over intercoms as power conduits burst into flame. Still, no one left their stations. They were part of something larger than life, a living myth being born in fire. Calder's hand shook as she keyed in another override. A low hum filled the bridge, not mechanical, not artificial. The banner was singing again. This time she could hear the words. You are seen. You are remembered. Kai looked up, his voice small, almost reverent. Commander, the energy's alive. Calder nodded. It's more than alive. It's us. Then through the static, a sound unlike anything before echoed. Not from their comms, but from the very fabric of space. A voice deep and resonant filled the void. It was the Celestial Emperor, or whatever commanded them. Humanity, you have touched the eternal. You wield creation without understanding. Calder's eyes burned with reflected light. Understanding isn't required, she said softly. Courage is. The celestial formations began to reform, swirling into a colossal spiral, a living storm of stars. Energy beams the size of mountains arced toward the Resolute, slicing through the vacuum with godlike precision. One struck the hull, ripping away entire decks. Dozens died instantly, but even as the ship screamed and burned, the banner held. The triangle of ships glowed like a sun being born. The Nomad's remains detonated, feeding its dying energy into the field. The St. Helix followed moments later, its captain transmitting a final salute before vanishing into light. Now only the Resolute remained, a single ship holding the line against eternity. Kai turned toward her, eyes glistening. It's just us now, Commander. Calder looked back at him, and for the first time she smiled. Not the smile of a soldier, but of someone who knew what it meant to live. Then let's make it count. She reached for the final lever, the banner's core ignition key. The deck was molten, alarms silent, power beyond measure coursing through the ship. To every soul that ever called themselves human, she whispered, this is our last sunrise. And she turned the key. Light consumed everything. The Resolute became a column of energy, pure and blinding. The banner field erupted outward, swallowing the celestial armies in its wake. The shockwave traveled faster than light, racing across the Orion system, igniting every moon's atmosphere, turning them into torches in the dark. And for one eternal instant all creation seemed to pause, as if the universe itself bowed its head to the defiance of one fragile species. When the light finally faded, Orion was silent. The celestial fleets were gone. The moons burned quietly, their ashes drifting like embers across the void. And at the center of it all, where the Resolute once stood, a single flag of blue and white fluttered gently in the radiation wind. Humanity's last banner, still standing. Silence followed the firestorm, a silence so vast it seemed to consume time itself. The Orion moons, once worlds of industry and laughter, now drifted as glowing ruins through the starfield, their surfaces molten and cracked like the skin of dying gods. For days there was no movement, no sound, no signal, just the fading echo of humanity's final act, still rippling across subspace like the ghost of a song that refused to end. The Resolute, once the heart of the Earth Navy's defiance, was gone. The Nomad and St. Helix were scattered across the void, their debris orbiting in perfect silent memorial. The Banner Protocol had consumed everything, metal, flesh, memory, yet left behind something neither human nor divine. In the place where the ships once stood, a sphere of golden white energy hovered, pulsing gently like a heartbeat that refused to stop. Within it, the quantum signatures of 1,000,000 human souls lingered, recorded, preserved, and reborn as light. Humanity had burned itself into the fabric of the universe. From beyond the event's horizon, something stirred. A ship impossibly old yet alive with strange bioluminescence drifted cautiously toward the remains. It wasn't human. Its hull resembled living crystal, its movements fluid like breathing. Inside, the beings that piloted it, the Celestials, spoke in tones that could fracture worlds. "The distortion persists," one said. "We have calculated all variables. The human anomaly should have decayed." Another voice, older, softer, responded, "Yet it does not. Observe." They projected streams of light into the heart of the golden sphere, and there, within its radiance, patterns began to form. Not random energy, not static, but language. The Celestials recoiled in unison as sound emerged from the light. It was not a voice as they understood it, but something deeper. Emotional resonance translated into vibration. "We are still here," it said. "You erased our bodies, but not our will. You silenced our worlds, but not our echo. We are the children of defiance, and you will remember us." The Celestials hesitated, for the first time in their long existence. Their perfect geometries flickered, uncertain. They were built to balance chaos, to maintain order, yet this was not chaos. It was persistence. It was meaning. And meaning could not be undone. "What are they?" one of the Celestials whispered, its voice shaking the void. The elder answered quietly, "They are the error we never accounted for, the will to matter." As the Celestials retreated into the distant dark, the golden sphere remained, its light spreading slowly across the Orion system. It touched the burned moons, the drifting wreckage, the ashes of cities lost in orbit, and wherever it reached, matter began to change. Tiny sparks formed, coalescing into crystalline structures, then fractal networks, then something resembling DNA. Within weeks, sensors scattered through the dead system recorded impossible readings. Oxygen forming from plasma, clouds condensing over lava fields, rain falling on stone for the first time in centuries. The Banner Protocol had not destroyed life. It had seeded it. Humanity's final weapon had become the blueprint for a new beginning. Somewhere within that expanding light, in a dimension folded between death and memory, Commander Rhea Calder opened her eyes. She stood on what looked like the Resolute's bridge, but the metal was translucent, the air golden, and everything hummed softly as if the ship itself was alive. There was no pain, no fear, no gravity, just warmth, the kind she had not felt since Earth. Figures appeared around her, ghostly and radiant, her crew. Lieutenant Kai stood by the console, smiling faintly, his eyes reflecting the light. "Commander," he said softly, "you did it." She looked around, her voice quiet. "Are we dead?" He finished, shaking his head. "Not exactly. The banner didn't end us. It changed us. We became part of it." Rhea walked closer to the viewport. Outside, she saw the Orion moons, still burning but softer now, glowing like embers instead of infernos. And beyond them, The light was spreading farther, toward the edges of the system. "It's still growing," she whispered. Kai nodded. "It's rewriting the field." The banner wasn't just a weapon, Commander. It was a seed. Every atom that burned became a code, a pattern of humanity written into space itself. Rhea turned to him, realization dawning. "We're not gone, are we?" "No," he said. "We're becoming something new." She closed her eyes, remembering the faces of every soldier she'd lost. Every world that fell silent, every voice that faded into static. For years she had fought to hold back oblivion, and now, somehow, oblivion had become creation. Humanity hadn't just survived, it had transcended. "We gave the universe our story," she murmured, "and it's telling it back." Outside, the sphere expanded again, pushing into the interstellar dark. It crossed the line of Orion's outer belt and reached the nebula beyond, a storm of color and gas that began to shimmer with impossible hues. Stars flared as the banner's pulse passed through them. For light years around, dormant systems awakened. Planets that had been lifeless for eons began to stir. The energy carried within it fragments of human thought, emotion, memory. The sum of all their songs, all their prayers, all their dreams. In time, the banner would drift across galaxies, leaving behind a trail of creation wherever it went. And when it reached distant civilizations, alien, ancient, or unborn, they would look up at their skies and see something written there in the spectrum of light, a single message encoded in starlight. We were here. 1,000 years later, explorers from another civilization, neither human nor celestial, would stumble upon the Orion ruins. They would find the remains of ships fused into crystal, the moons alive with strange vegetation, and in the core of it all, a monument of unknown design. It was small, barely a few meters tall, but etched across its surface were symbols that resonated like music. Scholars would spend centuries trying to decode them, unaware that the translation was simple. It was the last log of Commander Rhea Calder, preserved in quantum glass. Her words were short but eternal. "We fought not to win, but to be remembered. If you hear this, know that we loved, we dreamed, and we burned, and in burning we became light." When the recording ended, the monument itself would hum faintly, casting a soft blue glow that illuminated the surrounding field. Those who stood before it swore they could hear faint voices, laughter, whispers, the heartbeat of something vast and familiar. And somewhere in the deeper frequencies one could almost hear Calder's voice again, proud and calm as ever. "Raise your banners, whoever you are." The stars are listening. The Orion Cluster would become sacred ground, the place where gods fell silent and mortals taught the universe how to dream. And above its glowing moons, the last trace of humanity would drift endlessly. A current of light, endless and alive, carrying within it the story of a people who refused to be forgotten.